Awesome. Welcome to Ghost Tales, where we have some fun talking about the paranormal and experiences that people have had, things they've seen, heard, felt. With me today is Joe Tennis. He is,
Hey,
this is his second appearance with us. Hey, Joe.
hey there.
He is an author of several books dealing with both ghosts and not ghosts, more like some dealing with ghosts, some dealing with, history of Hampton Roads area and North Carolina, that kind of thing. But we always like having you here on the show, Joe.
Thank you. I love it. I love Wavy. It's a
Yeah,
great
thank you.
question.
Thank you so much. And so, okay, so we're going to talk about, we're going to get started talking about Beaches to Bluegrass,
Yeah,
which is,
yeah.
yeah.
This is the third book that I had released. It came out about 18 years ago,
Mhm.
and Beach to Bluegrass is a story of following Highway 58, and it was later re-released as Along Virginia's Route 58: True Tales from Beach to Bluegrass, and this is the book that came out later on. So this is actually the modern version of it. This one actually went out of print, so it's actually a collector's item today. And so this one kind of got me into ghost tales. And I had been following Route 58 since I was a kid, grew up in Virginia Beach, and got out and ended up over here in the far end of the state, around Weber City and Bristol and Washington County, Virginia, Scott County, Virginia. I've lived over in this area for, 30 some years. And I came up with this idea. I said, I want to write a book that kind of ties this Southwest Virginia area back to Hampton Roads. That's where this book came from. And so as I was doing it, chapter 2, I ended up at the Cavalier Hotel and ended up finding the ghost of Adolph Coors. And
Yes, we
so at
love
that time,
Cavalier.
there was no YouTube at that time. So there was really not a whole lot really written about Adolph Coors. And it was kind of like, yeah, Adolph Coors died here and his ghost is here. So it was really kind of a fun, funky story. And then I also ended up with the witch, Grace Sherwood. Of course, everybody's, a lot of people have heard of Grace Sherwood. She, in 1706, was the witch that got tied up and thrown into the Lynnhaven River.
And
Because
remind me why. Why was Grace Sherwood thought to be a witch? Explain that again.
Okay, so there was a couple of ladies. They're both named Elizabeth Barnes, Elizabeth Hill, and turned
Mhm.
out they were friends, and they were both accusing Grace of doing weird things. And then people around, she lived down in Pungo. Grace did, Grace Sherwood, and they said back in the late 1600s, early 1700s that she could bewitch your cotton crops. She could cause your cows to give sour milk. She could shrink herself so small she'd fit inside of a keyhole, and she would jump inside and then turn herself into a black cat and attack women. And then a story came along later, and probably after Grace's lifetime, that she could fit so small she could fit inside of an eggshell, and she would use this eggshell to scramble across the Atlantic Ocean in a single night and bring back a batch of rosemary to Virginia.
Huh.
And she would plant this rosemary all around her farm in Pungo, and people said, "My God, she's crazy." Well, now, Grace was also filing slander suits against people. So after a while, she kind of was troublesome, bothersome, and people were not trusting her and all this kind of stuff. And the jury is still kind of out. There's some people that, looked at her as a hero. But a lot of what we have about Grace Sherwood Day, if you talk and really do scratch the surface and get some modern research in there, you find out that her story has changed over the years. We've reinterpreted her, but we've adopted her as the witch of Virginia Beach.
Mhm.
And I grew up since the 60s and 70s knowing about the witch duck in Witch Duck Road. And my mama was a school teacher, and she had the little Witch of Pungo book and taught kids and everything at Providence Elementary School and Arrowhead Elementary School, taught them all about Grace Sherwood, the witch. And so it's just a great story, and it's one that's here in the book.
Yeah.
And yes.
Yes. And I remember talking, we had someone on from Colonial Williamsburg a few weeks back, and they actually mentioned in the courtroom, where I guess maybe she was held on trial or something, they
Yeah.
would see her spirit up on the upper balcony looking over, and they kept seeing her up until the year that she was pardoned. Was she pardoned by our current governor or a
No,
previous governor?
Tim
Okay.
Kaine
Okay, that's right.
in
Tim Kaine pardoned her.
2006,
Right. And that's when
July.
they stopped seeing her on the
Oh,
after she
boy.
was pardoned. So they think her spirit was somehow released from that.
Isn't that Isn't that cool? And there's another story that says that she comes out on Witch Duck Bay, and that's where she was ducked. And what happened was eventually they came up with this plan that they would tie her up and throw her in the Lynnhaven River. And if they did that, they threw her in there, and they said, okay, um, if they're gonna tie up her arms and her legs and everything and cross tie. If she untied herself, then she was a witch. And if she didn't untie herself, then, she was innocent. But if she didn't untie herself, she'd be dead. She would have
Doomed
drowned.
if you do, doomed if you don't.
Yeah. So she untied herself and she got out of it, and they threw her in the jail. Nobody really knows how long she was in the jail. I mean, some say as long as 7 years. And then there's other evidence that says maybe it wasn't quite that long. But she died in 1740. And she just became this great hero of Virginia Beach. And of course, today there's a statue of her in Virginia Beach. And I was on the Hampton Road show a few years ago when Route 58 came out and talked about it and talked all about Grace and stuff like that. And I've told that story so many places all around Virginia and telling about Grace. And I love it. It's one of my all-time favorite stories that I've ever written about.
Awesome.
And because I just think it's just a fascinating story, and kids love it. It's just great. So, but another one that I found as I was working on this project was Lady of the Lake at Lake Drummond. And it's not quite as involved. It's kind of an old Native American folk tale that Lake Drummond, and I'll show this. This is from, again, the Beach to Bluegrass book. So you can zero in on that a little bit.
Yeah.
So Lake Drummond is one of the only 2 natural freshwater lakes in Virginia. And this same picture is also in the Route 58 book, but this is, again, the collector's item, the original book that's out of print. And so it's one of the only 2 natural freshwater lakes in Virginia. The other one's being Mountain Lake. And the great thing about Lake Drummond is that it's right in the center of the Dismal Swamp, which, of course, bleeds in and goes into both Virginia and North Carolina. A lot of it's been drained. George Washington wanted to drain it. Anyways, there is a legend of a canoe that goes back and forth, and you can see this canoe, and there's this lady inside of it, and she's looking for her lost lover, and she has a lantern, and it's so neat. The story says that her lantern is powered. The light is coming from fireflies. So if you go out and see this ghostly canoe going back and forth across the lake, that's the Lady of the Lake, and she's looking for her lover. So from that, and doing the Route 58 book, I also wrote about the Virginia Creeper Trail and the New River Trail and some railroad trails along the way, old railroads that had turned into trails. And eventually that turned into this little book here, actually a big book, called Virginia Rail Trails Crossing the Commonwealth.
And hold on just a second. We'll continue this in just a moment. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back about those rails and trails that Joe was talking about. Hang on.
Harry Gould's Halloween Superstores have the widest selection of Halloween costumes, accessories, decorations, and more. Stop in 7 days a week, and their Halloween experts will help you with your ghoulish needs. Harry Gould's Halloween Superstores.
We are back on Ghost Tales. We've got Joe Tennis with us again. Hey, Joe.
Hey.
And talking about your Virginia... Still here. He's been locked in that position all during the whole commercial break. Yes, just freeze like that. All right, so I interrupted you talking about...
There's a ghost in the book. Okay, it captured me. Okay.
All right, Virginia Rails and Trails.
So Virginia Rails and Trails, and this is the most non-ghost book that I've ever had published, and it took me 9 years to put it together. But there is one spirit in there. It's the Creekfield woman on the Virginia Creeper Trail, and the Virginia Creeper Trail is this one right here. So to kind of give you an idea of what this book is, it is taking a journey across the state, and here's all where the rail trails are.
Oh, cool.
And as it's going across, it's going from the Eastern Shore to Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Suffolk, and Portsmouth, a little bit of that. And then it takes this journey all the way out to the Cumberland Gap. And of course, it goes on to the rest of the state. But when I was working on this book, just before, a few years before, and I still had this book out back in 2008, I was asked in Lawrenceville, Virginia, hey, can we use the name of your book, Beach to Bluegrass, for a trail that we're putting together? And the trail was called something to the neighborhood of Trans-Virginia Southern Trail. And the Department of Conservation and Recreation, they said, hey, we're taking these old railroads and we're going to turn them into trails, and we're going to add other trails, and we're eventually going to link so you can leave Atlantic Avenue and walk all the way to the Cumberland Gap, like 500 miles, and we're going to have this a pedestrian way.
How cool.
So about 12 years ago, they kind of established all of this a little bit, but there's been some problems along the way. Now, the fun thing I do want to say is that my daddy has lived in Virginia Beach for 60 years. He coined this phrase, beach to bluegrass. And so he kind of gave the name as well to the trail, the Beaches to Bluegrass Trail, which is still fledgling. It's still trying to put together. The problem with the trail right now is that the poster child of the trail, the great Virginia Creeper Trail, which was built on the old Abingdon branch of the Norfolk and Western Railway, was destroyed. Half of it was destroyed during Hurricane Helene in September of 2024. So that is now awaiting a $600 million renovation. And Mark Warner was a huge fan of this trail. He helped get a lot of this funding for it. Glenn Youngkin has been out. Governor Youngkin has been out to the Damascus area, not far from where I'm at, to put together this trail and get it going again. But what I'm wondering is that when this trail is done, will the Creekfield Woman still be there? And the Creekfield Woman is the little ghost tale that is included in here. And I had it in another book a few years ago, my first ghost tale book called The Marble and Other Ghost Tales of Tennessee and Virginia, which is tales around Southwest Virginia and down in Northeast Tennessee. The Creekfield Woman inhabits the Green Cove area and the Taylor's Valley area where the trail goes. And the fun thing about the Virginia Creeper Trail is it starts on a mountain and it goes downhill. So when you start at White Top Station and go down to Damascus, you can actually coast on your bicycle and actually hardly pedal for a lot of that. So it was a 17-mile downhill journey.
Oh, wow.
And the shuttles were taking people to the top of the mountain, and then people in their 80s were riding this thing for 17 miles. It's like a roller coaster going all the way down. So it's absolutely amazing. It was fun. But right now it's dead. It's just gone. And it's been obliterated. Just, about 12 to 18 trestles just, wiped out.
But we think the Creekfield Woman is still there.
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Is the Creekfield Woman still there?
Who is the
She's an old
Creekfield
farmer's legend. Goes back 100 years ago. And they say that she, wanders the fields, and if you follow her, she could lead you to a buried treasure. And I've actually talked to some people who said they had a photo they shot of some rocks and stuff, and it looked like this woman had lost her head, and that her head had been cut off, and she'd been looking for her head and all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of an amazing story. Now, when in 2008 the Beaches to Bluegrass Trail got started, and again, going back to Hampton Roads, the Norfolk Avenue Trail in downtown Virginia Beach at the resort area, and the Elizabeth River Trail in downtown Norfolk. Both of these are incorporated as part of this Beaches to Bluegrass Trail. And then going on out to the west, you get out to just west of me in Bristol, you have the Mendota Trail, which was not even under construction in 2008 when they asked me, can we use the name of your book for the trail? But it's now been finished. So now the Virginia Creeper Trail is dead. 17 miles of it is gone. The other half of it's actually there. The other 15 or 16 miles is still there. But the Mendota Trail is a dozen miles of that is there. And near the end of that, there's a ghost. And that is the ghost on the Sunnyside Bridge. And I write about that originally in the Haunts of Virginia's Blue Ridge Highlands book, and later the children's version, which was The Ghostly Tales of Virginia's Blue Ridge Highlands. This is the latest book I've had out. So this one here kind of approaches it as a dead railroad with a dead person haunting it. And this one is, hey, we've got a trail now and you can go out here, but you better watch out. Story is, out on the North Fork of the Holston River, is that when you get on this beautiful bridge, you better watch out, because there was a prisoner that fell into the river back in the late 1800s, and he tried to scramble to get back up, and he didn't. He ended up drowning. He was on a chain gang, and he thought, hey, if I could just get off this chain gang, I'll jump in the river and I'll get to safety. But he lost his life in the middle of this mess. So today they say if you feel grips on your ankles, that could be the ghostly spirit of this man coming back up onto the bridge, trying to get onto that and trying to get back up on what is now the trail.
Wow.
It's a beautiful trail. So it goes from Bristol, not too far from the Hard Rock Live Casino that just opened up a couple years ago, and it goes all the way out to Clinch Mountain. And Clinch Mountain and the North Fork of the Holston River out there is about 7.5 to 8 miles away from the Carter Fold. Now, the Carter Fold is this legendary place in Scott County, Virginia. And this will lead me to the last couple of stories for today.
Yeah.
And
hey, do you want to? Oh, before we get to that, I think we should take one more commercial break then.
Are we going to take another break?
Yes, we are.
Let's do. We'll take a break. You guide us, Ashley. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, Joe Tennis is joining us today. Joe, we will not interrupt you anymore. I promise.
That's okay. I enjoyed the break, and it's neat. It gets my bearings back to figure out what I'm talking about. I get times, But so we're going back to the Along Virginia's Route 58 book. Is that all right with you?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna take you on a journey. So I got a chance to meet the legendary Johnny Cash in 1995 and again in 1996 because he came from his wife grew up in Scott County, Virginia, about 20 miles from where I live. And I was a reporter for the Bristol Herald Courier for over 30 years. And in the middle of that, got a chance to go out there and meet him. And the Carter family comes from that area. They're an old-time country music band, and Bristol became known as the birthplace of country music because they were discovered here. Well, Johnny Cash and June Carter came back for benefit concerts several times in Scott County, and not too far from a little place called Rye Cove, Virginia. And can you see that one?
Yes.
Can we get a picture of this right here? Can we get the camera on? Okay, there you go. So this is Rye Cove, Virginia, and this is a very isolated hidden valley up in Scott County. And this, in May 2nd of 1929, was the worst tornado tragedy in Virginia history, and 12 people died. And a schoolhouse went up and started floating around and spinning around like the Wizard of Oz. 155 school kids were going around. It was just the tornado came in the shape of a dirty black cloud and just came right on in the valley and destroyed it. And I actually talked to a lady, she's since passed on, but she actually was in the tornado and she survived. And anyways, today they say that if you go up to Rye Cove, Virginia in Scott County, just west of Bristol, before you get to Cumberland Gap, you may hear school kids still screaming on May 2nd of 1920 every year. So we're coming up on the 100th anniversary of this tornado tragedy. So it's, like I said, so it's kind of a sad story, but there's still kind of this ghostly experience, ghostly spirit over there. And schools are always a lot of fun to write about as far as ghosts and stuff. And all the years I've done newspaper articles, magazine articles, and eventually books, I had a lot of fun researching and finding stories of colleges and schools and former colleges and things like that. And I talk a lot about that in the Route 58 book, the one that has Virginia Beach Boulevard and, of course, Hampton Roads in it. But this little book, The Marble and Other Ghost Tales of Tennessee and Virginia, was kind of an offshoot of the original Beach to Bluegrass book that I wrote. And I've done a lot of talks about it in around Hampton Roads, and it's still available here and there around Hampton Roads. And the fun story that I found when I first got into ghosts was really about 20 years ago. And actually more than that, 22 years ago, maybe 23. And I was at Radford University, where I went to college right outside of Virginia Tech. And I was looking for how places in Southwest Virginia took their names, which was the premise of my very first book. And I pulled out a file in the Appalachian Archives up there at the university in the research department. And it said, "Ghost Tales from Russell County You Ain't Heard Yet." And the story that I found was the ghost that smoked cigarettes at Honeacre High School. And it turned out it was a father of a man that I'd been going to church with for many years. So it was like, this is kind of a strange situation. So it turned out that this man was a school principal for 33 years, and he used to smoke cigarettes. Hey, back then, back in the mid 20th century, it didn't matter. People smoked cigarettes everywhere before it really got to be banned. he smoked so many cigarettes that his fingers turned yellow. Well, after he died, they started saying that he would show up at the A.P. Baldwin Gymnasium and he'd still be smoking cigarettes. And today they say if you go up to Honecker High School at night, you still can see the red tips of these lit cigarettes, what some say is a sign of the principal who never left school.
Oh, wow.
So there's the smoking gun. And after the book came out, I've gone up and done book fairs and stuff, and people have told me all through the years, oh my gosh, I've seen it. I've seen these red tips of these cigarettes. It's just freaky. And they've seen apparitions of the man. It's crazy. So it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Wow. And we do want to mention Beaches to Bluegrass. We want to say hi to your daddy. Hey, Mr. Tennis.
Yeah.
Who may be watching.
Yeah.
We love him.
And he's in Virginia Beach, and he's a sweet old fella. Yeah. And but he's the one who coined that phrase, because I said I'm going to write a book on Route 58, and when I first came and started working on it, the idea was, here's Virginia Beach Boulevard, and I got into Piedmont, and I didn't know that much about Franklin and Cortland and stuff, and I found all these fantastic stories of Brunswick stew and how it got started in Lawrenceville and Clarksville and how the lake was created out there, and ferry boats that would have people that would jump in the water and they would the ferry boat captain would be drunk and they would pull him back in the boat by his hair to get him back in there to row the boats and stuff. And South Boston has a ghost tale at Berry Hill. And there's Martinsville. I ended up finding a ghost at the courthouse there. And then you have the wreck of the old 97 in Danville. And when you got into the mountains, it just got even more fascinating. Mm. And so it's a great journey. Route 58, in a nutshell, it's 507 miles long. It is the longest road in Virginia. And the book, Along Virginia's Route 58, has 58 chapters. And 10 of these are ghostly tales. Awesome. So that kind of fits into what you do on the program. Yeah. So there we go.
Go check out the book.
Yeah, that's it.
There it is.
Yeah.
How cool. All righty. And really quickly, the Cavalier Hotel, were they forthcoming talking about the ghost of Adolph Kors?
Yeah, well, many years ago when I talked to them, I talked to a gentleman who was actually a bell captain who worked at the front. Mm-hmm. And he actually was telling me a little bit more about an experience he had in the kitchen. And that's a different story than Adolph Kors. So it was, but when Beach to Bluegrass came out, this one, it was sold for many years at the gift shop. So they were, and I remember one of the managers saying, hey, Adolph Kors, we're all about it. So today, I mean, you can go in there and of course you've been up there.
Yes.
And, there's all kinds of mentions about it, all kinds of videos and stuff about it. But, the story is kind of a mystery, and nobody knows whether he was pushed or whether he jumped. I mean, now it's gotten, he committed suicide. So I've
heard lots of different, I heard that he was downstairs eating dinner and he just kind of went up to the room, and next thing you know, he's out the window. And so it's like, okay, well, did he go up there? Did somebody follow him? Was somebody there in the room with him? Did they get pushed? Did he jump? Why would he leave a perfectly good dinner?
I think the thing that I've been told and what I have found is that, this was happening during Prohibition and he couldn't make his beer, and it was kind of sad, a time. If you think about somebody that had an art and a craft, of course, obviously beer making is a craft. It's an art. It's I've interviewed a lot of brewers over the years and they take this very seriously. And to think, this was going on. But, also the other thing is that about a week ago, I was watching Smokey and the Bandit. And of course, the whole premise of that is you're taking Kors, over to the East Coast from the Rocky Mountains. Yeah. And a lot of that was filmed down in Georgia, and and then so you used to live in Alabama, is that right? Mm-hmm. And I actually had maybe another time, but I could tell you another ghost experience I had in Mintown, Alabama, and I was in a hotel down there, and I was doing some magazine stories, and I was supposed to stay at this old Mentone hotel, and I got in this
I
place,
think
and
you told us about this in our last episode we had together, where you decided not to stay at the house overnight, right? You left,
no, that was
or
the
that was
rental
a different one.
homestead. That was another place I
Okay.
decided. This
What is
staying
up with
overnight
people
thing.
putting you up
This
in
is
places that are haunted?
this. There's at least 3 places I can tell you that I have felt weird experiences. Now, this was one. No, that was Patrick County, Virginia. And
Oh,
I
that's
left the
right.
middle of. Yeah, this was Mentone. I actually never wrote this in a story or anything, but there was this hotel, and everywhere I went inside the hotel, there were these crosses that were nailed to the wall. And I thought, what the heck do you have crosses nailed to the wall? And I was walking through this lobby, and there's all these, and they told me that I was going to stay inside this hotel, me all alone. And the place was thousands of square feet big, and it was built back in the 1800s. And I said, I'm going to stay all alone. They said, yes, you'll be here all alone. I said, no staff? They said, we don't have any staff tonight, but you'll be all right. You can just stay all alone. And I'm thinking, there's crosses nailed up. It was, you walking through a lobby. The last thing you want to see in a hotel lobby is a bunch of little crosses nailed up on the wall. So I looked at the Chamber of Commerce tourism director and I said, hey, man, can you please put me someplace else? Because I was a reporter and I was doing a job and I was trying to write about, Mentone and all this. He said, don't worry about it. We'll take you a place. I ended up staying in another place, and it was out on a gorge. It was a beautiful place. But I tell you the truth, I was spooked the whole place there, too. I kept feeling like there was something that followed me there.
Oh, dear.
And then, not more than a few months later, the Mentone Hotel that I'm telling you about burned down. And
Mysteriously?
Mysteriously, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, mysteriously. And it was just this freaky thing. And it was not very long after I was supposed to stay there. And it was a beautiful old place.
Yeah.
But I'm a Christian, and I believe that the cross is a symbol of salvation. It's a symbol of Jesus. It's a symbol of the crucifixion. It's a symbol of resurrection. And I think that one of the stories that we have with ghosts is that we don't want to let go of the personalities that we know. We don't want to let go of Adolph Kors, or we don't want to let go of Grace Sherwood. We want to say, hey, they're still here. We believe in Jesus and coming and saving us, and we talk to Jesus. And, but when he was first out of the tomb, it's in the Bible, people thought he was a ghost.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's, we don't know what God does with us after we die. And that's always been my explanation to people, that when you take a ghost that smokes cigarettes, maybe that is A.P. Baldwin there to warn kids, hey, don't do this. You're going to kill yourself.
Could be.
And, so
Yeah.
we don't know how we're being used.
Yeah.
Later.
And it's interesting. We recently had someone on the show talking about this, who are we to understand all of this? Maybe we're not meant to understand it. It's just there. Take it, however you will. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And as you and I have talked before, we don't know where all this energy that we have is really going to go.
Yeah.
And you can go into some places that are brand new, and you can just feel that it's empty. And you can go in other places, an old home, and you can feel the warmth inside that home, even though there's nobody in there.
Yeah.
And I felt that through the years at several places, and it's been kind of odd, but you got to have your mind open to it.
Yeah.
And I think not everybody can actually relate to it.
Yeah.
I think there's some people that are designed in this world to do a certain job, and there's other people that are here and they will pick up on certain perceptions. So we're all different, and that's what makes the world go around.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I think our Zoom is going to end in about 3 minutes, so I'm going to let you go before we get cut off. But Joe, It was so great having you on the show again today. Thank you so much for coming on.